um, kind of just look at any other questions and some of the material that we have. And also make sure that you are taking advantage of those other textbooks that are in the files section. Those are going to be good information. Um, the Cengage material has been great. They got a lot of good test prep stuff, so we don't have time to cover everything, but it's good to just get in a good habit of that to keep just to keep sharp in this material because it's just so much. And you're definitely going to want this cert. I mean, this is going to be probably one of the most important certs to get because it builds on everything. So, and this module is pretty straightforward, right? Um, it's basically, let me make sure I'm basically what's happening. Let me make sure I'm recording this. Okay. Yeah. So we're going to be just looking closer at securing our Windows machines, the tools that enable us to do that, why or why not. And at the end of the slides, I have like some other clips of different movies. I mean, I don't have the actual clips of the movies, but it talks about certain cyber movies that have um, clips that are relevant to our discussion. And maybe we could pull some of them up, but if we even have time. But also about printers, printers on networks have always been a target um, since since forever. These things were on the network. And then also support network resources using the Active Directory. So that's kind of what's happening in Module 17. Um, Now there are certain passwords. I used to have one on the laptop where when the machine was booting before even the operating system came on, but as it was booting, it was just still kind of the terminal black screen, and all of a sudden it says enter password, and that was activated through the BIOS. Um, that's actually a good deterrent right there. Having a BIOS password, um, even to be able to change certain things in BIOS. So pretty interesting stuff. But our main focus though is going to be securing the Windows account. So when you actually are in Windows, and the main point here is to use strong passwords. Now, I will share what I do, and maybe some of you guys can share out as well. But I usually have my browser suggest a strong password for me. So I usually use the Chrome password manager to kind of suggest passwords, and then when I do select it, it automatically saves it. And all I really have to do is just be turned like signed on to my browser and be in sync with my browser, and then I have that feature. But if I'm not in sync, it won't allow me to save passwords. Sometimes you do got to edit them because you can hit save it. Then when it's time for you to log in somewhere, it was a different website from when you actually created it, and it doesn't know to use the right one, and that could be weird. But usually when I do um, personally use the Google Manager, it usually hits on these criterias, and the symbols and numbers are just so random that it's just always going to come out to be a strong password. Um, Yeah, I mean, having strong passwords, sometimes for some passwords, like I said, I might have said before, they're not that strong, but um, I will have a second, another authentication activated, and that makes it strong, because it's like, well, if I have another authentication activated, my password doesn't necessarily have to be weak. But that's kind of a, I don't know. That could be debatable. Um, Especially if it also depends on what is your second um factor. If it's a one of those time delayed, handheld authenticator apps, and you only got like 20 seconds like that. Now that will be a good backup. But if it's just, hey, text my phone and put in this number, there might be ways around that, right? So you kind of have to know what you're doing and know your setup, and also it depends on what's behind that secure screen. I mean, if it's something not too valuable, then it doesn't have to be like Fort Knox or anything. So it really just depends. All right, let's look at some other ways that we can secure them. Does anybody want to speak to this at all, or have any experience in this? I mean, you guys are very much tech people. What do you guys do?
Yeah, I use Proton, um, Password Manager, and Aegis for second authentication.
Wait, what's your second authentication?
Aegis,
Oh
like,
wow. Is
so
that
it'll ask for the pen, and then I have to punch it in the pen.
is that like a paid service at all, or
No, it's free. It's free.
and
It's
you tr-
AEGIS, I believe.
and you trust it, right? There's no issues. It's legit.
Yeah,
And is
I
it
have
and it's just saved into the browser as well then, so you can just
Or
access.
I have it on my phone.
Nice. Yeah, it's good you got something, man. You have a system worked out that's working out for you. Yeah, you do want to protect your stuff, whether it's like bank information or not, like um, your data is pretty valuable. I see in the chat, we see the Google Authenticator most of the time. Good for you. No, I believe in the Google Authenticator. The Microsoft one has one too. It's a little bit more involved. Yeah, that works. That works. That makes a lot of sense. The Apple Password One. Huh. What's the Apple Password One? I'm not familiar with that one. Oh, wow. Maybe I need to look into that. Okay. Good. It seems like you guys are all on something though. Um,
I
there's
feel like these days, a lot of times things don't let you just have a password. You have to authenticate some other place. Like Instagram won't let you in without one of these things. Steam won't let you in without one of these things. Microsoft won't let you in. You have to use an authenticator. You can't just put in a password and username anymore for most things that aren't like little websites.
Yeah, that's so true. That is a good point. So it's like they realize that,
They always are like, check your email, check your texts.
huh, wow, it's a good point. here we have fingerprints, facial recognition, and pins. I was recently on the phone talking about an account that I'm trying to set up, and they said, "Would you like to have your voice recorded so that it can be used to authenticate yourself when you're talking?" And it was a layer of security. And I was just like, sure. I mean, they're probably going to record my voice anyway, so why not? If someone does try to impersonate me, they can. I don't know how good it is, but they can just tell by your voice if it's not you or not, which is I thought was pretty slick. Um, the end of the call, they were like, "All right, we got enough of your voice, so we're going to be using this on your account." I was like, "Oh, that's cool." Um, I don't know why anybody would go to great lengths to but I do know that it does happen. And yeah, so here we got the Windows Hello feature. The Windows prompts me to use the pin quite a lot, which apparently is supposed to be pretty good. Um, and then we have the local group policy editor, right, inside here. And we'll have a diagram of this, but it basically says that there are three tools that control what the users and the computer can do: the group policy, local group policy, and then local security policy. And the breakdown of that looks something like what you would see here. So you go into the local group policy editor, local security policy, and it's just, you know, the hierarchy, just layers upon layers, and you go inside Windows settings and then security settings, and then you see the different policies in here, and another layer inside of that, you see this, and there's a lot of things that you can do in there. Um, Basically, it just allows you to edit a subset of policies available in the local group policy editor. Here's a good one, right? File and folder encryption, right? I've seen this done a few ways. There's some where you open the file and it just looks like alien chicken scratch and just corrupted and weird symbols um and I was wondering, like, is that a defect in my file, or is this some kind of encryption, you know? Even still, I'm still kind of puzzled, but I do know that sometimes when files are encrypted, they can look like just something out of this world. I don't know if anyone's ever seen any file like that, like you happen to open a recovered file and then it just looks like symbols that you never really use or see, and it's just the whole page is just covered in these weird, like, hieroglyphic type of symbols and whatnot. Um, but here, um, they're talking about the data at rest encryption can be accomplished using the Windows encrypted file system. So there is a thing. Um, the the file system, what it does is it encrypts files and folders stored on the drive using the NTFS file system, and it's in the business and professional editions of Windows. So if a folder is marked for encryption, every file created in or copied to the folder will be encrypted, and also an encrypted file remains encrypted if moved to an unencrypted folder. So that's interesting. And so in the Explorer, you can get to the encrypted file and folder names. They're displayed in green. Um, but this piece here is interesting, right? An encrypted file remains encrypted if moved to an unencrypted folder. Okay. That I thought that was pretty interesting. Um, so here's how it is, right? You would um go into a folder and then you would see the properties of that folder. You would go to um the advanced attributes, and then in there you will get some options to encrypt the contents. Um, I don't know. I don't know how good it is or if that even works, but let me see if I can demo this. I am on professional, so I should have the capability of that. And let me see. You know what? I should do that a lot more often, actually. I'm just going to create a file. So I have some file and okay, they probably won't allow me to pull that up just yet, but I will, I'll just switch my screen over really quickly so you guys can see the file that I've just created. It's called Cyber, but I wanted to right click on it. Um, that way I can get to the properties of that file. So it's in desktop. Let me see. If I go to desktop and then go to cyber and right click on cyber and go to properties, I've made it to the properties um, tab. And now if I go down to advanced, just as I suspected, I will have the options to encrypt and everything inside would also be encrypted. That's pretty neat, actually. That's pretty neat. I think um, you know, depending on your setup and whatnot, it might not be a bad idea to encrypt things more often. So we're getting into some of that BitLocker encryption, and some of you guys are familiar with it. Um, it encrypts the entire Windows volume and any other volume on the drive, and it restricts access by requiring one or two encryption keys. The BitLocker to go encrypts data on a USB flash. So there's three ways that it to use it. Computer authenticate. So that holds the BitLocker encryption. So this is more of the inner workings on how it actually works. The user authentication for computers that don't have the TPM, the startup key can be stored on the USB drive. And then finally, computer and user authentication. Um, it can be just like a two-factor authentication kind of setup. Pretty interesting. Here we have classifying user accounts and user groups. The rights or privileges are established when you first create your account. And then they're getting into the theory of least privilege where you only want to give someone as much access as they need to do the job. You know, um, we can't just give or make everyone like admin of the computer system. That's just really, really bad practice. They can be changed later on, obviously. User accounts are created using the user accounts and applets in the control panels. We also have the local users and group utility and the computer management console. So pretty straightforward stuff. Uh, Classifying the user accounts. So you actually go into the computer management system and you create your user accounts, you can kind of see, what's happening, who are the users on your machine and whatnot. Um, that could be pretty interesting. I feel like, I mean, it's good to know. It's good to know. So you click on local users group and you click on users, you can now see the users of your machine. All right. And so I have one I can pull up real quick. I'll share my screen here. Um, I just realized my daughter has access to my computer. I built an account for her, but she's not admin. And I just put in to pull mines up to get to the computer management. The best way to do is just search for it. It's pretty good searching feature. Um, it'll pull up pretty much whatever you're looking for. My groups, tons of groups. Um, this is going to be a lot of groups. But the users, yeah, I've only really created two, but there are a few others. Um, I'm curious about this administrator. I've never logged in as this person. Interesting. Very interesting. Um, and then you can go on and just create a new user. Pop up, pop up over here. I'm not gonna do it right now, but it would be kind of cool to have users. Yeah, man, pretty straightforward there. All right, let's get back to the preview. Um, here's some more built-in user groups that are already there, power user groups and whatnot. Yeah, so it's all good. Methods to assign. Let's keep going. Share permission. Okay. Here's a quick knowledge check question. What hardware component is needed to set up a BitLocker encryption so you can authenticate the computer? And it is required to update from Windows 10 to Windows 11. We keep running into this. And apparently mine was not um, mine wasn't detected, so I have to either enable it or somehow figure out. Maybe when I built my machine, I screwed up. I don't know. The answer is a TPM machine chip on the motherboard is needed to set up a BitLocker encryption so you can authenticate the computer. This chip holds the security key that authenticates the computer. And that's one of the last things that I'm missing to be able to make an update to my machine. I gotta look into that. How to share folders and files. Um, this is important. Being able to share folders and files from members to members. has to do with the settings, right? So user and group information with the GP result command. So you can use this command to pull a list of all the groups and users that belong, and then enter this command to retrieve the information. And then how to use the share permissions. So you just follow these steps. There might even be a lab for this. You would select the sharing tab, advanced sharing, share the folder, click permissions, add, and then select the users. And everybody that's a part of that users will have the same capability. We can delete the everyone group and select it in the permissions box and click. So here, some tips on support and troubleshooting shared files and folders. Interesting, right? Advanced permissions, settings, manage permissions, check the effective permissions, take ownership of a file, and whatnot. Here they're saying a mapped drive, or also called a network share, is one of the most powerful and versatile methods of communicating over a network. A mapped drive makes one computer, the client, appear to have a new hard drive, such as a drive E, that's really a hard drive space on another host computer, the server. The client computer creates and saves a shortcut associated with the drive letter that points to the host computer. Here's something else, hidden network resources. To protect confidential data from users on the network, disable the file in the printer sharing, hide a shared folder, and if you want a shared folder but you don't want others to see it, add a $sign to the end of the folder name. So a lot of tricks. Administrative shares are folders that are shared by the default, and then only the admin can access that. Let's keep going. So here under the computer management, you can see under shares, you can see things that are shared amongst the users and the groups in the computer. Okay, it's pretty technical. Okay, so what's up with the Active Directory, the AD? So we have the AD again is move this. It's a suite of services and databases provided by the Windows server. So it's used to manage the Windows domain, including access to the domain and what users and computers can do in the domain. We have the 5 groups of services, the Active Directory domain, the Active Directory certificate services, federation services, rights management, and lightweight directory services. So what they're saying is that it's like a top-down hierarchy structure where you have the users and then domains. They're all organized into organizational units and sub units. And the organizational unit is created to make it easier for technicians to assign privileges. So this is what this setup looks like. So we have the forests is like the thing that holds the domain and the sites. We have the organizational units, security groups, whatnot. Here's another group policy here set up. This is like another organizational unit. So group policies creates like this organizational unit, and then we have different teams of groups that may be all a part of the same group organizational unit, and then in which case they will then have access to some of the shared resources on deck. Let's keep going. So creating and managing user accounts in AD. So you can use one of the methods to access the domain controllers. I'm sitting at the computer, remote access, and then remote access via Windows Admin Center. Here you would go into the Active Directory users' computers. You would go into users, new user, right click in there, and then you can just create one, set up your password and whatnot. It has to meet the requirements, is what they're saying. And then you're in there. And here's what it will look like here. So unlock a locked account. This is interesting. This is good stuff right here. Um, all right, and then the last piece here, these are the tips. Disable the guest account, log on time restrictions, timeout the screen, admin password, home folder, log on scripts and whatnot. Okay. We got group policies, user policies, follow the steps here. This is how we can create a new um, group policy. So they're saying here that some of the policies overlap or conflict. So in order in which the policies are applied, and the last policy is considered the policy that wins. So local site domain OU, and then it's enforced. All right, we've reached a knowledge check. When setting up OUs in a new domain, why might it be useful to put all computers in one OU and all users in another? So we're setting up the organizational unit in a new domain. Why might it be useful to put all computers in one OU and all users in another? And here it says it will be easier to inventory computers in the domain. It will help organize users into user groups. An OU must contain either users or computers, but not both. And then policies generally apply to either computers or users. Yes, indeed. Thank you. D is good. D wins. When setting up an OUs in a new domain, why might it be useful? Because policies generally apply to either computers or users. It's not often that you will create a policy that applies to both users and computers. Yeah. And the summary here, um, it should have been able to kind of secure Windows personal computer, Windows tools, local computer shares, and secure photos, files, and printers on the network, and then also support network resources using Active Directory. Well, Module 17 is really interesting. I think it's it's not going to be too much, and it's actually a good topic to study too because it's just good practice for you to be aware of how to secure that machine. Yeah, I added a few extra slides just for fun. So using a password manager, what is a password manager, which we all know, the benefits, and then an example of why one would need this is from the movie or the show Mr. Robot in episode one. There's a scene. I was actually trying to find it, but I couldn't find it. There's a scene where he kind of exploits a weak password and just kind of shows you how one could do that and why one would do that. Um, yeah, I probably wouldn't be able to pull it up now. The show Mr. Robot does have a lot of clips on YouTube though. It's almost I mean you can almost watch it for free. I mean you can see all the good parts, I guess. Very well done show. There's so many good shows. I if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend that one. There's a lot of seasons too, so you can't just binge it right away, but it could keep you at the tube for a while, the TV for a while. Um, Another show I'd recommend, it's it's called Halt and Catch Fire. Has anybody heard of that one? Anybody watch that one? Halt and Catch Fire. I love that show, man. Yeah, it was actually on Netflix. Oh, last I checked. I don't know if it's still on there, but it's a pretty awesome show. Um, there's a lot of shows. So here's another one. Applying local security policies. So we talked about what they were and where they were and how to edit them and configure them. Um, an example of this is in the movie Live Free or Die Hard. And in that show, there is it does get a little techie. Um, they exploit the weak security policies and it shows that that could lead to a breach. Um, here's one. Security implementation on a Windows device, right? So steps to secure a Windows device, enable firewall, or any kind of antivirus software, manage the users and their permissions, encrypt sensitive data. And an example of this was in the movie Skyfall. And it demonstrates the risk of connecting infected devices. Um, Password and account management, best practices. Um, we all know the importance of passwords in war games. That's a classic one, almost 50 years old, or no, 40, more like 42 or something. How weak passwords are guessed easily. Yeah, yeah, no. I mean, you know, they still are. I, I get, I mean, the truth is like you could screw up somebody by, if you know their email address, you can just go and log in as them and put in the wrong password a bunch of times. I actually had to do that once, and I put in the password a bunch of times, and I knew it would lock that person out, and I just wanted to get that person's attention because it was just, yeah, it's kind of weird. But I can't say that I hacked them, but I did mess him up a little bit, especially if he needed access really quickly. I don't know if he did or not, but after I did that, then he ended up just giving me what I wanted. He probably thought I did something a lot vicious and worse to him, but I didn't. I I just simply entered entered the password in a bunch of times just to lock it out. Yeah, it's crazy, crazy stuff. Uh, so browsers, what's up with browsers? That's kind of when we start talking about, if we ever do talk about bug bounty hunting, this is where it's at. You have to master browsers, like literally, and also how the internet transmits data. You gotta know that, the ins and outs of it, in order to be able to find vulnerabilities and get money from it. Um, there's an example, this movie, and I don't know the exact scene, but the girl with the dragon tattoo is a hacker, and it's an example of securing your browsing and different hacking techniques where the cross-site reverse forgery and all of these other ways that people can steal your data if you have a browser up. Let's say you've logged into your bank and that's up. And that's a window somewhere. You're not on it. You have multiple windows open, but you might be on one window, like on Instagram or Facebook, but you're one of the windows on your browser. It could be a tab or a new window. As long as it's the same session where it's running, people can get access from one site and have that and be able to access the information on the other side. Um, and so that's why sometimes they say close this, like when you sign into something secure, there's like, for one more security, close the window, basically exit it out. But not only that, you should actually just close off, just shut down all of them and then start a new Chrome browser. That apparently can fix it by closing out the browser and starting the browser again. Um, all right, I have another one. The Mission Impossible bypassing security settings. Um, so we talked a little bit about common security issues with, things are vulnerable, not updated, malware infections and whatnot. They have an example of this, Mission Impossible. Here's another. Um, controllers shared folders and files implementing the ACL lists and the matrix unauthorized access to the system resources. It demonstrates um, an example of this. And yeah, I mean, a few questions just to ponder over. Um, does anybody have any kind of encounters of security risks or even certain security policies?
Well, I found out I have two things. I went and got my oil changed, and on the printout, it gave me all the personal identifying information of the last owner. So that's a bad company security policy. And my car said happy birthday. So I texted him and said happy birthday. And he was like, who the hell is this? So that was funny. And then also yesterday, I realized my router has been admin password for, I don't know, my whole life, 20 years probably. So I changed that.
The password of your router was just admin.
I mean, the login was admin and the password was password. Yeah, it was the default Xfinity one.
Oh,
Like my Wi-Fi password was changed, but the actual like,
yeah, the gateway.
yeah, yeah.
I know what you mean. A lot of people don't mess with it.
I really had just assumed that my dad would have done it like 10 years ago or something, or like had done it like in 2017 when we moved in or something.
I think you studying IT is getting you more vigilant, man. You're going around just it's turning you into an animal.
I was just curious. I was like, well, there's no way it's default, right? And it was.
That's a good point. So it looks like Vlad said the same thing. Everything in his house is password. Uh, yeah, good stuff, guys. Yeah, we're probably gonna shut it down around here. I think this was a good spot.